You're listening to the Kim D Snyder Show, episode number 036. In this episode, you will discover what are the tools of effective business communication.
Welcome to the Kim D Snyder Podcast.
Welcome. I'm your host, Kim. This show is for business leaders to stay ahead, successful, and happy. For the show notes, please go to kimdsnyder.com/036. If you have an interest for me to work with leaders in your organization, please go to kimdsnyder.com/inquire. And let's get this party started. And this party started when I was talking to a business colleague / friend of mine recently, and we hadn't got together to catch up, and we said, let's do it. And she said, as long as it's not a Zoom video call, she is zoomed out. And, we're 3 or 4 months into the pandemic here, and these tips are relevant for any time of year. So if you've got a remote team, a global team, right now we're just hitting a lot of this because it's a pandemic, and Zoom is the tool of choice, and it's used by a lot of people, and it is a video tool. And so, I really wanted to step back and say, okay, I've heard complaints from a lot of people, you're sitting on calls all day long, back to back to back, and you honestly don't have any time to get work, and it's a lot of work to stare at the screen, and there's science behind the fatigue. And so let's really take a step back and look at, is Zoom the right tool for you, and is it the right tool for communication right now? So let's really figure out what we're trying to accomplish. Let's look at the goal, the criteria that you can consider when you're picking the tool, and that will help drive the decision for the tool. Because ultimately, we want to make sure that we're reducing the frustration of our team. We want to make sure that we're keeping the productivity up, and we want to make sure that we're keeping their engagement up. So not only just on the calls, but in the work unit, because it is harder to work, I think, remotely, and to do that collaboration. So let's make sure we're, trying to solve those business issues as best we can. So what are the types of communication that we're talking about and some of the tools? Well, right now we're talking about written. So written is going to be emails, chats, text, blog post, could be a white paper, but generally not for the communication I'm talking about. I'm talking about communication kind of on a daily basis. And so it might be in the form of an event or a meeting. And so when I say that, that's what I mean. The second format of communication is going to be audio. So, audio or voice. So it could be conference calls, could be a voice broadcast, could be a podcast, a private podcast or a public podcast to get information out. Depends what you're doing. And the third way is video. So video could be like a webinar, which is one way. So GoToWebinar, or Zoom has a webinar component. So it could be that, where one person's speaking or presenting, or a few, and then the attendees don't get to communicate back except through chat. Or it could be a combination, or just strict video. So you could be actually sending out video. You could send out video voicemails to individuals or small groups. And so that's the type of communication. Let's look at some of those factors and see what those factors are. The first thing is really determining the purpose of the meeting. So is it to inform or announce? Is it a stand-up? Is it an all-hands meeting? Is it a status meeting? Is it a board meeting? What is the purpose of the meeting? Is it to inform and to announce? Is the meeting there to decide or get a consensus? Do you need to figure out an answer at that meeting? Do you need to get a consensus? Is it a brainstorming topic? Are you trying to gather a bunch of ideas? And then finally, is education? Is it to educate? Which sometimes is like inform in the first one, so it just depends. Also consider the number of employees or the number of attendees. Generally, the larger number of attendees, the slower you have to go. That will also determine your tool. If it's a personal or like one-to-one communication or a small group, that will also dictate it, right? That's not typically a one-way form of communication. You might need two-way. So assuming that we can't be in person, what are the tools that we would have to use to do that collaboration and that communication? The type of audience. And so is it a friendly audience? Is it a known audience? Do they not know you? Do they know you? It just depends. Is it a cross-company meeting, cross-division? cross group. Also the who's going to attend and what roles. If you have the higher the level, the executive and the seniors, the quicker it needs to be, because they'll typically run out of time and they want summary, and they usually want it ahead of time. If it's a lower level employee or more entry level, then, getting really specific in the communication, but keeping it simple and clear. And so very different levels of communication within the organization. Some other things to consider about picking out the tool is the time sensitivity of the information, and just the sensitivity of it, and then the sensitivity of a response. And so, again, is it sensitive in nature? So is there something going on with the team, an individual? Do you need to reprimand or coach somebody? Do you need to let somebody go? Are there layoffs in the company that you want to let your team know personally before something happens? Do you want to let them know about the good news? So again, looking at the sensitivity of the information, and then if you need a response, or the information needs to get out right away before everybody else knows about it, that's the sensitivity of the information. So not only the audience, but the information. Actions. Do you need any actions to take place before or after the meeting? Do you need to collect or collaborate information and have a pre-read? Do you need to use this meeting or event to give people a heads up and some prep about what they need to complete afterwards? And so again, depending on the tool, you may or may not need to do that. You may or may not need to do it live. It could be recorded. And again, this is why figuring out what you want to do with the information and figuring out the people that are involved and where they're located might determine the tool, because if you've got a team that needs to hear this information and you've got them all over the world, then you might want to do it recorded so that they can watch it in their time zone. A factor that we have right now with COVID is that people are working at home and didn't have a lot of stuff in place to handle that. And so they might be dealing with child care and elder care and pet care where they weren't dealing with that before. And so now, even though there's probably a core work area of 9 to 5 or work hours of 9 to 5, they might not get to it in 9 to 5. Maybe your work hours are 9 to noon and folks are working outside of that. So you may have to record this information so they can consume it at their own time. The communication tools that you use have to be done effectively, right? So I'm going to say ultimately the tools are going to change. And so, Zoom has been pretty new. I don't know, they're about 4 or 5 years, but it hasn't hit the corporate market until recently. And so who knows if Zoom will be in place in 1 year, 2 years, 5 years. GoToWebinar is there. Who knows if that'll be there in 1 to 2 or 5 years. So to me, the tools, like you need a webinar platform, you need a meeting platform, you need some sort of chat platform, and it could be a chat platform on steroids, something like chat. Those are really the tools that you should look at, but it's also the ones that your company and your organization supports because people know how to use them. So figure out the best tool for you and your team and how you're going to use those to communicate this information based on the criteria. And, also it changes that communication because now, a lot of people used to do the, copy a bunch of people just in case. You don't want to do that for these meetings. Again, be very, very specific on the audience. And in fact, the more specific and the shorter that you can do, the better. So for example, if you're doing like a status meeting or an update, maybe getting the technical team and the functional team together separately and do a quick 15-minute meeting with one meeting, summary that they can look at in 2 minutes. That's much faster than it is for an hour meeting for everybody on the phone. And so, really looking at how do you shorten those times. And also looking at those pre-read or any information that you can send ahead of time and, sending any clarifications that they need. So that's it. What's the best tool to use? Well, I'm going to go back to the old Toastmasters saying and they say that the best Toastmaster meeting to attend is the one that you can attend, that fits in your time and your schedule. The best tool to use is the one that fits in your time and schedule. And so that would equate to what is the tool that gets the desired outcome with the least amount of time, right? We don't want to spend all of our time communicating and on meetings. And so we've got to get some additional areas of work done. And so whatever that tool is that works for you and your team to get it done the quickest way with the results that you want is the right tool to pick. What are the action steps for this episode? Well, one, I would actually just start by looking at your upcoming week's meeting and see if you can actually start to change and shift those and, make them shorter, rejigger some of the attendees, and or maybe cancel them altogether. Number two is, what tools do you need in place for the responses? So if you're going to start doing some pre-reads or some summary or some checklist items, are you using Google Forms or Excel for checklist or whatever you're going to use? So look at those tools. Are you going to update your tool going forward? That's number three. The tool that you've been using, are you going to continue to use it, or are you going to change tools? So those are the 3 action items, and the show notes for this episode can be reached at kimdsnyder.com/036. Thank you for listening. And if you leave a review on iTunes, it will help reach more leaders that can use this information. If you're looking for help with leaders in your organization, let's talk. Go to kimdsnyder.com/inquire. See you on the next episode.